Welcome to Community Conversations. I am Queen Miss Ebony J, and you're listening and watching 1230 The Buzz, your talk station on 101.5, 101.1 The Wiz, and 100.3 Cincy's R&B station. Now, if you're just tuning in and you haven't never listened to Community Conversations, this is where we come to talk about problems happening right here in our community. And I have Miss G. Hey, Miss Akila Salam, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now I know you published a book that's titled Done All the Time. Can you talk to my audience about this book?
Yes, this is a book that I did out of love, really. And I wrote the book during COVID. That gave me time to write it. But the book is about my son being wrongly convicted. He spent 13 years in the prison system. He was sentenced to 18 to life. And I was able to get him out with the help of a lawyer and his nonprofit program, David Singleton. So the story goes, he was basically wrongly convicted and he was put in prison. Uh, my whole concern was they did not convince me that he was guilty. So that's where I came in at, trying to fight a battle and going through a few lawyers. And the whole system is just really about the lawyers and the judges. I think they just like to keep being reelected and making money off of the backs of us like we're the slaves again.
Well, let's go back real quick because I want to make sure that we set things straight so our listeners walk us through this. So he was convicted, or he went to court. You said they wasn't you feel in your heart that they wasn't able to convince you. However, the jurors felt that they were convinced. And so this is why your son ended up in prison, or was it a decision made from the judge?
It was a decision as far as the conviction with the jurors, but he was put on trial with someone else. So the trial basically was not about him. And that's something that they do all the time. They could put you with somebody and say that he did it, and because you have maybe another person in his instance, he had another person that was a co-defendant who was in there on the charge of murder with him and charge of murder in another case. And basically he said he didn't do it, that they did it. So he had no physical evidence against him at all. But they put him on trial with someone else. The judge knew what he was doing, because if he had stood trial on just himself, he would never been convicted, because it would have been his word against someone else's word. But they know how to twist things up.
Of
Uh,
course.
it's really sad that it is done all the time, and they use the word complicit. Well, in his case, and what's told in the book is that he met someone one night, and just like you and I meet one night, and I don't know you, you don't know me, but whatever you do, I get held accountable for it. So I think it should be on the merits of your own self. That's why they put him on trial with someone else, because they didn't have anything really against him. It's
Oh, so this is
unfortunate.
wrong place, wrong time with wrong person.
And it can happen to anybody. So,
Correct.
so that's something, they can put words on it like complicit, and they can also use words like a plea deal. And my son basically was arrested and put in jail, and what he was arrested for never even happened. But once they got him in jail, they charged him with something totally different. And this is the charge of murder. He was in jail for almost 2 months before they even brought up the murder case. So at that time, what they were doing was trying to look for
Right.
evidence against you, and it's a whole system. And the reason why they say plea case, a plea bargain, it may not have anything to do with what you're in jail for, because they wanted him to snitch, whatever term you want to call it, on a friend of his that he went to like preschool with. They wanted him to snitch on him, who had they claim or was accused of killing this white man. And because my son said he wasn't there and didn't know anything about it, that was the plea bargain. You tell us about this and we'll drop these other charges, against you. And since he said he wasn't there and he didn't know anything about it, they put him on trial with somebody else. So the whole thing is very confusing, and it's done all the time with our just us as a race of people.
You ain't never lied. I've heard so many stories, and it just really breaks my heart because why do you give us a lawyer if the lawyer really isn't for us neither?
Right, right. Well, the lawyer said nothing. His whole during the trial, his whole talk to me was, well, they got to prove he was there. Well, why don't you truly prove that he wasn't there? And that always, the whole thing puzzled me, because if someone came up to you and said, Ebony, where was you at Thursday on April the 2nd? You don't know. And that's what they did with him. So, because you don't know, you have a hard time proving it. You got to run around and find somebody and say that you was with them. So it's a big case of, you do something for me, I do something for you. So
Right.
basically, I hate to give the end away, he did come home uh, after 13 years and a few months. He came home uh, the end of January, right before COVID hit. And the place that they had him housed in was the place in Ohio, as far as the correctional institute, that had the most cases of COVID in the
Oh
state.
wow.
But I mean, I'm glad that he came home, and thank God he didn't get COVID or anything like that. But when you run up against stuff like people lying, say when he was released, that's why that quid pro quo comes in. You give me something, I give you something. Basically, he had to plead guilty to something he was never tried for. He didn't want to do it, but because he had served enough time, he could plead guilty to manslaughter, and he walked. And then when at the end of the day, the judge asked the prosecutor, so do you have anything to say? And the prosecutor says, well, Your Honor, we never thought that he did it, but we think he was a lookout. So for someone to take you from a murder to a lookout, you were not tried for being a lookout. I could be there and just looking around, but that don't mean I'm a lookout.
Yes, but because he did not give them the answers they were looking for when they asked, then that's how they,
That's right.
which is
And
messed up. We seen this with the Central Six. I mean, the Central
right,
Park Six.
right.
This is a common common thing that they're doing.
And that's why I called my book Done All the Time, because it is done all the time. And that don't make it right. But at the same time, my son served 13 years. And I know that it's that part is done all the time. There's a lot of young men and women in jail, and they may be overcharged with something, because if I'm with you and you do something and I get charged with you, I'm being overcharged. I didn't do it, you did it. I didn't know you were going to do it.
But guilty by association. My daddy been teaching me that since I was
Right.
7. You was
Yes.
with them, that mean you did it.
And that's the way that they look at it.
It's our
So
reality.
yes, it is. It's a reality, and it's a shame, because a lot of us poor people, we can't get anybody to listen nor help, and that's part of it. And basically, I call myself a mother bear because I was not giving up. I was not giving up, and I thank God that I held strong to my ground as a mother. So
Talk to us about the process. There are maybe other mothers who are listening. I know that he has a nonprofit, and I know you all are here to help other people. But what advice do you have for other mothers who may be experiencing the same thing?
well, I went through a lot of different lawyers, and there is a program. It's a nonprofit, and it's in need of money because they are a nonprofit. But David Singleton has a program called Beyond Guilt, and he has had a lot of people go through his program and come out, who may have been at the wrong place at the wrong time, or just guilty by association, or whatever the circumstances is. If you can get with someone who thinks like him, Now, he is a nonprofit, so that means that he's very busy. But, the more people that we get like him, or, with the nonprofit organizations, the better we will be, because they do listen to lawyers where they won't listen to you. And I mean, you got to be a model person in prison also. You can't be in there doing other things that make your life worse.
Right.
know. And while my son was incarcerated, he did learn a program that he is qualified to teach inside the prison and outside. And it's called Thinking for a Change. And that's something that, he looked forward to teaching. He was coming out, when he came out, he thought he would be able to teach it in our school system. But of course, that changed with COVID. So, and then the prisons were shut down. So he still has a chance because he's really big on that. Just it's a program of getting to know yourself and how to think. Because now when he went in prison, he was 19, so he was buck wild. He came out at 32. So he's just been out a little over a year. So I'm praying that, he still gets to teach this program. Somebody will pick it up.
Wow. So he spent his 20s
Yeah,
incarcerated
all of his 20s.
for something he didn't do.
Yeah, for something he didn't do, but that's our system. I mean, I don't know how any other mother would feel if you know that your child didn't do something, and then at the end they say, well, we didn't think that he did it. We thought he was just there, you know. So he just got caught up. You get caught up, but I mean, I talk in the book now. I want all the listeners to know that my son was not an A1 child. He wasn't a child that didn't get into stuff, because I talk about his just coming up in his late teens where he got shot, and that's the neighborhood that we all lived in, and that happens too, but that doesn't mean that he's guilty of murder.
Right.
But then I also say that God has his way of dealing with us. You really need to watch what you do, because karma can be something. And I really don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing, because God had to sit him down to save him,
That's what I was about to say, to save his life.
to save his life.
He must have been off the chain. And even though he didn't do it, God was like, you about to do something. So just have a seat real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah, you need to think for a while, just like you went in there and learned that thinking for a change. And he needed to think for a change. And I think that he has come around to be a very humble, more humble than a lot of people on the streets, because he's glad to be out, but a very humble person.
Yeah. What can we expect when reading the book? Are there any tips, or is this more so just about the journey? Is it educational, or is it
It
just
could
more?
be it could be educational to a lot of people. I've heard through a friend of mine that a couple of prosecutors have the book, so it could be very educational to them to see a perspective of mothers, what we go through, and how the system is twisted. And so it's educational to anybody, those that are incarcerated, those that have people incarcerated, those who don't want to be incarcerated, and judges, and all of them can learn just the perspective, because I talk about a lot of different things, even how you're treated in prison as a visitor. You know, we don't think, I mean, they really treat you like you are just as just
Yeah,
as guilty as the person in prison. And it's hard to get over, because you're scared as heck going in there, because you're going in there with all kind of people, including your own child. And other people may be scared of him because they hear he's a murderer. So it's no easy way to put it, but the book is for everybody.
I
It's a good
love it.
read.
I I'm just sitting here and just, I can't imagine what you felt. But how did you feel when, like, what was the steps that you all had to take to get him to come home? Because somebody's listening right now and they baby in jail and they baby didn't do it neither and they want to get their baby out. What were some of the steps that you took to make sure, besides just getting different lawyers?
Well, the 13 years will tell you that it wasn't a quick fix. So,
Right.
you know, the short story is I had some lawyers that did nothing but take your money and then say, oh, well, that didn't work, you know. So he exhausted all of his chances to get out, you know. So I don't know. Mine was just pure luck because I have paid two separate lawyers a nice little bit of sum of money who just said, you know, go in front of the judge and the judge would say, well, just because he's tired of being in prison don't mean I'm gonna let him out. So I don't know. Everything just kind of fell in place that last few years because the judge that I had, he was basically a real bigot. He really was. You know, he really didn't even want to look you in the face. And the judge that he had was not the judge on the case.
Okay.
So I don't even know if this man even was familiar with my son's case. So things fell the way they fell, but
Right.
at the end, I had a lawyer, like I said, the justice, I mean the Ohio Justice uh, program through David Singleton, and it would seem like it was so easy. If I had gone to him first, like the first year my son was in prison,
Wow.
I guess he wouldn't have did all the time. But that's not the way God planned it. So I just try to take it on that level that you know God was in charge of all of this because we were supposed to walk this down.
Yeah.
So, you know, the money that I spent that I gave to people who did absolutely nothing was just money because I didn't pay a dime to get him out.
Wow. Look at God.
Mm-hmm.
Something again only He can do, right?
That's right. That's right.
And it don't
So
be in our time; it be in His time.
that's right. That is so true. So, you know, he had to sit there and wait and get himself together. So once he got himself together, you know, he was ready to come out. God said,
Yeah.
come on out. So all of it is, it sounds like to me almost like a movie at the end where they come out of prison and they come running in your arms. I didn't get that. I had so many dreams and so many daydreams and nightmares of him coming home. And the way that he came home, I still shake my head because I didn't get that arms open, glad to see you crying, jumping up and down. It was like it was a drive-by. We went to the Justice Center. They let him out at night. It was drizzling in December, and he got in the back of the car, and all I could do was hold his hand until I got home.
Wow.
So, you know, the whole thing is is really unique, but
Yeah.
only he would have to go through that, and myself. I really hope that I can give
It's
hope
His
to other
story,
parents.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, because you
So,
didn't lose hope. You didn't lose
no,
hope at all.
no, I didn't. And that's what the whole book is about. You know, a lot of, again, done all the time. A lot of people, when you have people incarcerated because the system says that they're guilty, they feel like you are halfway crazy if you persist and keep trying to give them hope and get them out because somebody else says that they're guilty and they hit that gavel. It's like God Almighty has said it, but I was not taking that because, you know, I felt like they didn't know everything. I went down to even get all of his records. And the first thing that I found out was he was in prison and didn't have an arrest record because what he was arrested for, they never talked about. So they do things, you know, you have to follow it. You know, they do things that you think is easy for them, but they, you know, they do things with parents when you don't have a lawyer or you don't have the understanding. They twist you around a lot, you know. So it's just it's just God's gift to us that, you know, we need to be really thankful that he is home because it's like no way if you knew the story,
Yeah.
and like I said in the book, there's no way that they would really let him out. But then when you find out he didn't do anything except at the wrong place, and you know, they say you complicit, then that's all it takes.
Wow.
So it takes nothing away from the child that got killed. You know, that's something that my heart, I really felt hard about because the person that got killed was also friends with my daughter. I didn't know anything about it. She did the night that it happened, but it just, it's just really sad that these guns in our community affect so many people,
It does.
all kind of ways.
Well, can you go ahead and let everybody know where they can get this book, where it can be purchased at?
Okay, the book again is called Done All the Time. It's on Amazon, and doneallthetime.com is my website. So you can
Oh,
go on the website
awesome.
and purchase it from Amazon, Done All the
Yes.
Time.
Get
So
your copy.
yes, please get you a copy, and I'm always available around the city at something going on where you might even be able to get it autographed, but it's on Amazon.com. And I really appreciate you, Ebony, for letting me come and talk.
No problem, Miss Akila. I appreciate you for, sharing your story. Keep sharing it because it's really going to help someone.
I hope so. My son and I do a lot of things together, so hopefully he says he's gonna write his own version. He calls mine the PG version. So hopefully, hopefully he writes his, and we'll have the whole story maybe.
Yes, we can put it together and they can get
Right,
it as a group.
right. That
Yes,
would be
ma'am.
wonderful.
Well, thank you again. This is 1230 The Buzz, your talk station on 101.5, 101.1 The Wiz, and 100.3 Cincy's R&B station.
Thank you.